All right, it's 7 o'clock, and I'd like to call the regular meeting of Kimberley City Council for Monday, April 27th to order, held here on the Ktunaxa homelands. Welcome to staff who are here tonight, as always, folks in the gallery and everybody watching on our YouTube channel. Thanks for being with us. Councillor Cairns is here long distance from Scotland. Hi, Sue. Yeah, where are you exactly?
You're muted, Sue.
You're muted. Okay, we're not sure, but it is somewhere.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
had the screen small and I was on mute, so apologies. I'm in Glasgow, just outside of Glasgow.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for joining us tonight, Sue.
Thanks.
And Councillor McBain is in Princeton. Well, he's in Princeton as we speak for Game 6 of the KIJHL finals. For those that have been hiding under a rock, it's Game 6 tonight. Princeton is up 3-2, and they have to win tonight in order to be back here for Game 3 on Thursday night. All of the games have been close. 2 have been overtime. 2-1 wins. It's been really close. So go get them, Nitros. We have a fairly, well, not fairly, we have a packed agenda tonight. I think just before the meeting, I counted just under 700 pages of reading. That if council went through every page, it would have taken a few hours, to say the least. So we'll try and move things along, and I appreciate the cooperation of everybody to stay focused on the task at hand, and we'll be out of here before 10 o'clock. For those in the gallery and those at home, if anybody has any questions that come up in the course of anything to do with the agenda that's on the agenda here tonight, we have a question and answer period at the end of the meeting. So you will have to wait until the end of the meeting to ask the questions. Yeah, and I think that's it for preliminaries. Do we have any late additions, Maurice?
There's no late item, Mr. Mayor.
All right, no late items, but with council's approval, I'd like to move new business item number 8, which is the MRDT application renewal, to the first item after delegation tonight, so that we can deal with it while it's fresh from the delegation. Everybody okay with that? Okay, with that change, could I have somebody to move adoption, please? Councillor McGuire, thank you. Councillor Dunneback seconds. All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. Next up, we have adoption of the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on April the 13th. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Dunneback, thank you. Councillor Fox seconds. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. All right, we have 2 delegations this evening, and kind of given the tightness of the agenda, I would ask both delegations to stick to the 10 minutes. We have questions and answers following that, so I'm sure all of the material will in fact get covered. But if you could please keep the presentation inside 10, that would be awesome. And I think, Jasmine, if you can, at the 10-minute mark, if you can give the high sign, and it'll give our presenters a chance to wrap up. Okay, first up tonight, we have Ed Elm with Center 64 and the Kimberley Arts Council. Ed, welcome. Thank you. Take it away.
Good evening, Mayor McConaughey. Let's be formal about it, and good evening to the councillors and the staff of Kimberley. Thank you for this opportunity to tell our story of Center 64, mostly about what a heck of a year 2025 was for us. As I recounted last time I spoke to this council, we made the financial decision not to renew the manager's contract last year. Lost a couple of directors as a result. and weathered a year-long lawsuit, which only 3 weeks ago was completely dismissed in our favor. So that's actually the good news. I guess the tough news is that without a manager, I had to rely on our board of directors, and starting the year with only 3 was a bit of a tough choice, but we picked up 3 more, and we had to do some pretty heavy lifting to take the job that the manager was typically doing. 2025, and last year I talked about benchmarks, talked about COVID, how it impacts the things that we rely on. And I think we have another benchmark now with the Iranian war. The result of that basically affects everybody in this room. And it certainly affects our ability to attract financing and to attract grants and sponsorship. I think it's no question that there's a whole feeling about affordability now, and certainly there are more people chasing a diminishing pot of funds. Let me give you a quick overview of how we did financially for 2025. We lost $37,000, about $37,000. Not good news. It's better than the 70,000 we lost the year before, but we did lose $37,000, and that just bites into our net worth, and we all know what happens if that continues. As a summary, though, comparing one to the other, it's actually some pretty good news. We're actually trending the way that I would like to see us go. We had a revenue decline. This is the loss of revenue that we would have normally had from 24 to 25 of $48,000. 29,000 of that was diminishing grants and sponsorships. And we have a pretty capable person chasing every grant that's available. She's shaking her head. But it's just tough out there. It's just tough out there. But I want to set that kind of as a comment. On the good side, we worked damn hard, fine-tuning, cutting where we can cut, and our expenses were down year to year by $75,000. That's a ton of dough. That's a ton of money that we save by, saving paper clips almost. It's a lot of that was salary and administrative costs, but we're working hard to make Center 64 survive. Not all of that $37,000 was operating loss. And I think that's important to understand. A part of that, a good part of the $37,000 loss was money that we spent without a supporting grant. And that's money that in the realization that money from the big pot's going to be smaller and smaller, we really sat around and said, how do we get more revenue for us? And the only way we can do that is to create a non-grant dependent revenue through workshops, fees for classes, and that kind of thing. And how do you do that? Well, you have to create space to do that. So we spent some of that loss by renovating 2 of the major rooms in the Center 64, the first being the Works Room, which is the little room off the main gallery, which until this year was simply a storage room full of junk and full of stuff that people think are important. Probably is, but not too sure. We put a new floor in, we painted it, we bought in some tables and benches, and we started running classes and workshops in there to generate revenue. It took a while to get it going, and it wasn't really until September that it kind of kicked off. It holds about 15 people. You can do painting, drawing, paper arts. We even had a class for teaching people how to tie flies for fishing. Now, come on, that's a cool thing, I think. We started in September, about 100 attendees altogether. We made a point of making sure the fees covered all the costs of materials so that you can just sign up and come and do whatever it is that you're doing. And our other user groups can also use it. So we've had We Paint doing special events in there, and our Photo at C64, Kimberly Next Generation, and Clay Collective. The atelier room is a little room off the second floor, normally used as a kind of an office or a catch-all. We put in new floor, paint, tables, holds 10 people, and we're running, again, fiber arts and writing workshops. I mean, think of that, writing workshops. The other events that we did, but before I touch on that, I want to tell you the line that you have to kind of walk when you're managing and generating revenue from different directions and creating opportunities to do so. We have 2 staff. We have 6 volunteer directors. And we probably have 15 or 20 other volunteers who are related to Flicks, the theater, and Live at Studio 64. These are people that spend their days and their nights making things happen for Center 64 that generates some money. You know, if you lean on them too much, you get burnout. So we have to walk that line very, very carefully. The other events we did this year, for example, Live at Studio 64 hosted 6 concerts, well attended, over 400 tickets sold. We have 120 seats in our auditorium, and we brought in all sorts of acts. Some of you probably went to see them. It's great entertainment for not very much money. Flicks at C64 is our movie theater. Awesome movies, $5 for goodness sake. Sorry, I should say $5. $5, $7 if you're not a member. And we sell popcorn. We sold so much popcorn this year, we had to buy another machine. We got it donated to us, but we bought another bigger machine because we couldn't keep up with the demand. That's what I call success. Our exhibition space, the gallery, showcased over 75 local artists. Great opportunity for, you know, Johnny or Mary who wants to try doing some art. I'm going to hang my stuff at Center 64. Great, awesome stuff. We have a new initiative called Theater at Center 64. It's by staff and again volunteers. We did Puss in Boots over the Christmas holiday, and coming soon is Agatha Christie's Mousetrap. Buy your tickets, running for 4 nights in May, 22, 23, 24. So please buy your tickets. We also did Art in the Garden, Oktoberfest, Kaleidoscope, Canada Day. Canada Day was a buster. The city collaborated with us. We had Rotary in there with their food truck. The city provided a cake. We had it down at Rotary Park, and it was pretty good. Elbows up, right? That was the day. The big thing for us this coming year, besides these new initiatives, is the opening of the stage. And of course, the city's been awesome on that. You guys have helped us tremendously. You know, I know that you're in right now trying to get bids for a closing door that'll roll down and for security. You're going to finish the fence for us so that we can have events in there and control it, so we can have tickets, so we can sell wine and beer. That's the kind of stuff that that Center 64 is becoming a hub. And I talked last year, and more so now, Center 64 is becoming the soul of Kimberley. We are the community center. We are the gathering spot now. And with that stage, I can just see that mushrooming. June 5th is the opening. You know, we're going to have a cake and cut some ribbon. I am sure Mayor McCormick will say a few words. Hope to have somebody from CBT there and maybe an MLA and some of the staff. The first event in the afternoon as part of that is going to be the Selkirk Jazz Choir. Love to get the high school kids involved. That's what a community center is all about. High school kids are going to be there. They're going to do their jazz choir in the afternoon. And in the afternoon, our guy that runs Live at Studio 64 has planned some stuff for the adults, a band and so on. And we'll sell some wine and beer.
Couple minutes, Ed.
I got two more things I want to talk about. We have kind of a handshake deal with the city, and I respect that. We have a good relationship with the city. We'll figure out this year how we're going to work it, what it costs, and if we can make it sustainable, and we'll work that out. I have a question for this council, and I think this is what my agenda is for tonight. My question is, what do your council see as your vision for Center 64? You know, we live at your pleasure, rent-free in your house. What do you see us doing? Where do you see us fitting in? And more importantly, where do you think in an election year your electorate is seeing as the vision of Center 64? We have to think about survivability. Last year I stood here and said, I'm not asking for any money. I'm standing here today saying I'm not asking for any money because, you know, it's just not there. I get that. But we have to find a way to prioritize the services that we offer to the city of Kimberley. And I invite you to tell us what you see as your vision. Okay, that's my question for the night. And now I invite
Awesome.
your questions.
Thank you, Ed. Council. Questions or comments? Go ahead, Councillor Dunneback.
Pardon me. Super thankful for Center 64. I've been there for many presentations. And I think it's really awesome for the community. And the fact that now we have a beautiful stage there. I just wonder what Center 64's plans are. I've referenced Caslow lots as they have something very similar downtown. And I've on many occasions literally stumbled up the bank from a hard day of work and had concerts going on with bands that are traveling through. And I wonder if maybe it's plausible that we can reach out to another community that has something like this and see how they're navigating that, because what I've seen there and what I see what we have now is very much common. And if we can attract artists, spoken word music, they also use it as part of the farmers market for kids' crafts and all sorts of things, art outside. I think now this is a huge avenue that we can absolutely, and I say we, I mean the city and Center 64, that we can capitalize on this together and absolutely use that to its capacity.
It's a great question. It involves a couple of different levels of answer. In doing summer days or whatever it was called, in a couple of different things, we ran into some difficulty downtown trying to supply beer and wine and so on, because then of course the bars and restaurants weren't too happy with that. And it also cost us money. We'd put these events on, use as many volunteers as we could, but it wasn't a sort of a revenue generator, it was a revenue loss. I like your idea of collaborating with other jurisdictions to bring in local artists. I see our stage as that kind of opportunity where we can get local people in to perform, maybe get the high school in to do some plays, maybe get some people who are just starting out that want to have their first gig. They could use our stage. Our theater inside the center sets up quite well for the more professional bands to come in, and you know, they play for a fee and we charge fees and that sort of thing. But I like your idea of collaborating with other people and determining what the good and bad parts are and how to fix them. So I like your idea. It's good.
Further?
So we have no plan to generate money with the stage that we just built then?
Well, you know, we're still at the formative stage. I mean, the thing isn't even finished construction really, but we're still at the formative stage of trying to do the programming of that stage. We have some things planned for the summer. One of the decisions we made is on our AGM on the 11th of May, we are going to enlarge our board from 6 to 8 because I just need more hands. We have a federal grant for a student this summer to do some programs, and with any luck, they could also help on the program at that stage. it's kind of wide open what we can do there. And as we sort of decided, this is sort of the pivotal year of how does this thing work? How do we best make it work? How do we serve the community the best? So I don't know if I've answered your question, but it's a work in progress for sure.
Thanks, Ed.
Yeah,
Councillor Roberts, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You got to know I was going to say something.
Of course.
1973, when we entered into this project, when we started looking around and figuring out how in heaven's name were we ever going to provide anything for the arts in a town where sports was the way you got a job. If you could play soccer, you could work for Cominco. If you could play hockey, you could work for Cominco. If you had any baseball training, you could work for Cominco. You could do any kind of sports. You could skate, you could go skiing, you could do absolutely everything. Not one single thing anywhere for the arts. And so when this building became available and we found a way to it through some provincial grants and we developed this, it was a kind of, like you mentioned, this was going to be the soul of the community, where theater and those young people who are bent towards the arts rather than the sports, all of which I might mention show up in historical caves, that we have to develop that into such a way that people can appreciate it, enjoy it. Under no conditions should we let it go. We really need to support this. We need to find every kind of way we can to support you. And I appreciate how hard those funds are to come by, but I will help you fight for that any way that I can.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for
I
your
agree with
comments.
your comment too about it being the soul of Kimberley, the emotional soul of Kimberley. You know, the athletic soul of Kimberley is the hockey rink. It's the aquatic center. It's all the things that we do athletically here, and that's very, very important. But that ingredient of the soul and the artistic and the theater, very important. We'll make it happen.
All right, Councillor McGuire, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation, Ed. I really appreciate what you've done over the past couple of years, and I think we're moving in the right direction. And my number one priority there is just getting people in the building and really creating that culture of arts and creativity within our community. I think it's kind of the backbone to a lot of the entrepreneurship that goes into our community too, is really celebrating that creativity and allowing it to grow. So I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
Obviously, lots more to come. And May the 11th is the AGM. Hopefully we get lots of attendance there. Okay, next up, we have Danny Page, who is here from Tourism Kimberley to talk about the MRDT renewal and the 5-year strategic plan. Go ahead, Danny. The floor is yours.
How's it going? I'm Danny. Some of you know me, some of you don't. Some of you read about me on Facebook, but I'm here now. I'm the new interim executive director at Tourism Kimberley from now till end of 2027. And here just to, hopefully people got the presentation and some of the notes I sent, but here to quickly talk about the upcoming renewal process and some of the requests that come from that. I'll try to be conscious of time here. If I hit 8 minutes, somebody throw a pen at me so I'm paying attention or something.
We'll
over
let
there.
you know.
And yeah, I'll rip through the presentation pretty quick because I'm sure there's more in the Q&A, more value in the Q&A than the fancy PowerPoint. So as perfect. Yeah, as hopefully people know, Tourism Kimberley's been around since around 2007. Kimberley's been collecting the MRDT, whether it was directly to Tourism Kimberley or through the City of Kimberley to Tourism Kimberley. Every 5 years, that renewal process comes up. The 5-year process is coming up for renewal. So when I stepped into this interim role, that was kind of priority number one, to figure out what that looking like, what our timeline is, which is June 30th, and what all needs to be submitted for that. As well with the renewal. So basically the renewal means as of April 1st or March 31st, 2027. There's no.
Sorry, Danny. What is it?
I wonder if Dan would mind clarifying for the watching audience what MRDT is, please.
Yeah. Why don't we just. So MRDT is a municipal and regional district tax that is collected through local short-term rental accommodators in an area, a resort municipality, and then given back basically through the provincial destination marketing organization, which is Destination BC, and through Ministry of Tourism, Arts, Culture, as well as Ministry of Finance, and then sent back as it is right now to the City of Kimberley, and then the City of Kimberley to Tourism Kimberley, and Tourism Kimberley, or any DMO that receives an MRDT, submits a 5-year strategic plan that gets reviewed and approved by the Ministry of Finance and the provincial DMO, which is Destination BC. And as the MRDT is collected and given back, then the idea is the DMO is to follow that strategic plan year in, year out, measured against KPIs that are put in the plan, and report on that annually. So basically take the money, make sure all of it's basically spent while keeping a little bit of a pocket to hit whatever KPIs were put into that 5-year strategic plan. If there's any edits to the 5-year strategic plan, 1-year tactical plans are submitted throughout to kind of review how that's going to be changed. It's in theory a simple process, or I think it was a simpler process 20 years ago when this started. It's quite convoluted and complex now because the world's changed a lot. It's a lot different than just collecting hotel tax basically and then using it to go to trade shows, promote extra visitation, print media, print basically brochures and stuff in a visitor center. Now, how you attract, retain, and give back to the community looks a lot different. So we're in this kind of crux, I would call it, of changing goals of MRDT from destination marketing to destination management. I'm going to run out of time though.
No,
It's wildly simple and wildly complex at the same time. That helps nothing probably.
no more interruptions until you're finished. Then we'll ask the questions.
So yeah, the basically what's happening right now is as of March 31st, 2027, the agreement will end. The current 5-year agreement will end. So you usually have to submit quite a bit in advance, in this case, June 30th, 2026, for that renewal process. Every 5 years, when you renew, you can choose as an area to be collecting 2%. We'll just call it hotel tax because it's easier to understand, or 3%. So different accommodators don't get to choose what they charge, the 2 or 3%. It's determined in the area. You have to go to 3%. Over 51% of all local short-term rental accommodators on board with the decision, and the city, of course. And then you submit the application with the 5-year strategic plan of what you're going to do with not only the 2%, but the additional 3% for the next 5 years, or additional 1%, I should say. And if approved by the city, the local accommodators on board, the strategic plans approved, all the accounting and finances are in line from the last 5 years. Destination BC overviews the plan, gives it to Ministry of Finance. They look at it, and if they approve, they would let us know sometime between now and April 1st, 2027 that we are approved, or we will remain at 2%. And for the next 5 years, hotels will add that on to their bills to people visiting and staying in short-term rentals. So Airbnbs, hotels, not long-term rentals. That money will be collected, heads back to the ministry. They account for it, and about 3 months later, it ends up back to us to basically execute the plan that we have given to them of what we're going to do with that money. And of course, we can't just do anything with that money. It's pretty laid out in their plans what you can actually do with the money, and they have to approve your plan. So that's the process we're in right now. It's a bit, to be honest, we're in a bit of a rush because of our time crunch, but what I'm here today is to basically ask for or present to the council what's happening, and then bring 3 things to the table, which is hopefully having the council's approval to, once again, renew for 5 years, first and foremost. Second, in my opinion, and Tourism Kimberley's, we think it's a pretty opportune time to ask to do the bump up to the 3%. I can go through a lot of reasons, probably a lot of those will come in Q&A. And then as well, we've discussed a bit of back and forth with the city as well, the idea of changing it back to how it originally was, where the funds go directly to Tourism Kimberley, not via City of Kimberley, to basically ease the burden of the accounting costs and burden on the city, because there is a lot of accounting and overview and signing off on things every year. That being said, even if that does happen, the city still has to be a sign-off partner every year on everything. So they have to review every plan. and sign off and everything, but it just takes a little bit of the monthly burden off them, off the city, off yourselves, I suppose. So the plan, so I did send out a very rough draft of a current strategic plan. Our strategic plans do have to follow very strict guideline through Destination BC. If I use any acronym, stop me, because again, I'm sure they don't make sense. But so that is very rough draft. That's probably going to still change a couple times based on your input, based on our accommodators input, and based on Destination BC's input, till we get a final draft here that everybody will look at, hopefully to have submitted by June 1st, June 15th. In that, obviously the plan will change if we are going for 2 or 3% slightly as well. Included in that as well, as some of you may have seen, we've done some community outreach. We also have 2 in-person community outreach consultations booked May 11th and 14th to hear from people. That being said, I might have lost my ability to switch.
You can do that from here.
One of the key things to understand with this, the key stakeholders in this, in MRDT collection, hotel tax collection, are the short-term rental accommodators. Those, especially those that have more than 4 doors or 4 rooms in their ownership or management, and of course the city. Beyond that, what you want to do with the MRDT monies is kind of help complement and work with other community groups like Chamber, City, Resort, all those things, and obviously align as much as you can with them. But the main goal of hotel tax collection, at least at its core, is to collect hotel tax money and basically allocate it for the main KPI that you're kind of always set with, which is to put heads in beds, create more visitation through marketing and what's becoming management now. So to go quickly through Tourism Kimberley's core values, so we've really realigned Tourism Kimberley in my time working there with the board, who's been great. We've set out 3 core values moving forward to kind of really streamline maybe some of the bumps that have come up in the past. And those 3 being community focused, being very collaborative and consistent in what we do, and being transparent. So all that comes from different work I've done in different destinations, being 3 things that really are essential to have success in any of this sort of work. None of this work is quick. When you get the hotel tax MRDT money, anything you implement, you usually won't see success from it from 1, 2, 3 years down the road. It's not quick turnaround initiatives. So being consistent in how you approach everything, consistent in your process, transparent with your community, transparent with your organizations is key. And of course, focusing on the community, even though your main goal is to drive visitation. Next, if you don't mind. So with that, we've defined kind of 3 areas of focus going forward in the main plan, and that is the resort area. So when we talk about areas of focus, it doesn't mean we're ignoring any other area. Our area is all of Kimberley, but with MRDT money, you have, especially in Kimberley, as the report that was submitted by the city, it's actually quite a small amount of money coming in here comparatively to other destinations, because we don't have a lot of hotels, is to kind of really push it into the resort area. There's a good return on investment there, as well as aligning with the resort development plan and our main accommodators being located in that area. But then as well, really trying to complement and focus on the downtown Plateau area. We know that's the heart of Kimberley. We know Center 64 is super important. We know arts, culture, and history is super important. And we know diversifying visitor experiences in complements with what was talked about, the key sports, ski, golf, bike, hike, is key to extend visitation and have strong visitor stays and get visitors to come in shoulder areas. And our trail networks. Obviously, Kimberley Trail Society does huge work, but it's more about trying to collect data of what is the value of trails. Trails is on everybody's mind, it seems, in the area right now. So from a tourism perspective, we really need to collect data. So that's where a DMO can come in. Next, how am I doing time-wise? Am I running out of time? Am I out of
Close.
time? So the 6 main goals we have in the plan as it sits right now that our accommodators are on board with, we actually have about 91% of our accommodators on board with this plan to push for 3% MRDT and go for another 5 years here, if we have the city's approval. And that's with 6 main KPIs. So what we've done is really taken away the vagueness of what Tourism Kimberley does and defined with very specific things, how we measure them, what we're trying to do. So number 1, always with DMO money, MRDT money, hotel tax money, whatever acronym you want to use, you have to always have the KPI of increasing visitation. So increasing year-round visitation is key, and that's really targeting shoulder season. That's not promoting more tourists to come in July and August or December, January, and February. Those times are busy. It's how to complement those areas that just push the boundaries past that. Increasing average lengths of stay. So right now, a Kimberley average length of stay based on reports we've got from some of the accommodators up on the ski hill is about 3.5 nights. And the feedback the accommodators are getting is because there's not basically the things to do in Kimberley, it's not diverse enough. So exactly as Center 64 was talking about, it's like, you've got your core things. So how do we add to that? How do we add arts, culture, history, local functions, things like that, that allow that golf group, ski family group, whatever it is, to have more things to do that also add value to the local community and local community members as well. Enhanced visitor experiences, local destination stewardship. So that part's key to my heart. That's like education, giving back to youth, sustainability plans, making sure the area is set up and understands what tourism is, understands what tourism values is, and understands tourism's not the enemy. It can be a complementary great piece that increases local happiness and drives revenue for the economy. Grow community collaboration. So we're getting really aligned with the resort municipality, the city RMI plan, as well as KTS's plan and the high school's plan and Culture of the Rockies, and working together. Creating a master strategy plan. That's something that was identified by the city and I think is huge. That's like, we've seen a huge success in that within the DMO world, like Revelstoke. They have a master tourism plan. They worked with the Chamber of Commerce, the city, and the local DMO, worked together and created a master. So everybody's got their individual plans, of course, for funding purposes. They created a really simple, community understandable master plan. So there's that opportunity, especially with the RMI plan coming up in the end of 2027 with the city. And creating some signature experiences. So that's kind of more in the tail end sort of things of a 5-year plan, but it's defining those more signature things for Kimberley of what makes Kimberley for both locals and visitors. We'll quickly, and our 3 main goals we want to hit, which we do have measurements for, is to promote new tourist visits, retain loyal visitors, and then of course, increase local happiness is key. Next slide. So quickly run through, yeah, we have almost all of our accommodators, STR accommodators on board with this plan at the moment. Our community survey so far has had about 127 results, which isn't huge, it's better than none. We're still pushing, we're getting results in, and we'll hopefully get a bunch more. And last slide. And then just for understanding, so the last 5-year strategic plan that was defined by, well, actually 2 EDs back, the main KPI in it was beds and heads, so visitation, increasing visitation. If I've doing my research, looking over the last 5-year plan. So on that KPI, Tourism Kimberley, although maybe from what I understand and being around the area and research, has maybe had some bumps when it comes to communication and being super involved with the community. From a KPI perspective, Tourism Kimberley actually has done quite well. Usually the key metric in the DMO world for increased visitation is increased MRDT collection, because obviously more people staying, more hotel tax is collected. And as you can see, year over year, Tourism Kimberley actually over the last 5 years, on average, has increased its MRDT amount by, I think it's on average 14%. So over 10% year over year, which is quite impressive. And as you get bigger, probably not sustainable, but Tourism Kimberley has been successful in growing visitation. Now I think last slide. So yeah, 3 requests, as I've talked about today, 3 main requests I'm here for today, or to be considered today, not to get answers on today, is the kind of the idea or the approval to continue from the city, as we already have it from the accommodators, to renew for another 5 years with collecting hotel tax in the area, which also means RMI can be collected as well in the area, to actually move that from 2% up to 3%. To kind of match what every other Kootenay area collecting is getting. Kimberley's the last one still collecting 2%, not 3%. At about 75 recipients across BC that get MRDT, about 55% get 3%. So it seems like to me and to us, it really seems like the right time to move up for the next 5 years, starting April 1st, 2027. And then, of course, the approval to streamline it as of April 1st, 2027 for the funds to kind of direct right to Tourism Kimberley. So when we do our reporting, we kind of do our monthly reporting in, out, but then our annual reporting still goes through the city, our 1-year tactical plans, all that, but takes some of the burden off the city. But we still obviously are engaging with the city in that process to make sure we're all aligned. And that is it.
All right, good timing, Danny. Thanks for that. Council, questions for Danny with regard to content of the presentation. We'll have the broader conversation around MRDT right away here as we hit the agenda item. So, questions? Go ahead, Councillor Dunneback.
First question, what happens if you don't get the MRDT, pardon me?
The renewal altogether, like if nothing's renewed, basically hotel tax stops getting charged in the area as of April 1st, 2027.
Okay. Second question, I noticed in your presentation here that the railway wasn't identified as a tourist attraction, which brought in 9,400 people last year.
The Railway Underground Museum
That's correct, sir.
in the strategic plan
Yeah, why is it not included?
as a under the SWOT analysis.
I'm just not seeing it at all as a tourist attraction.
Okay, well, it definitely should. Yeah, it's huge, and history's a huge part of it. Once again, that strategic plan, that V3 strategic plan that I believe went out.
Okay.
Hopefully people looked. That is a very rough draft, but yes, that's absolutely a huge part of the equation here.
Third question, if I may.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Why are the stakeholders listed as to who they are?
Why are not the stakeholders?
Yeah, so we know who the people are, stakeholders who have invested into our town.
Who are you?
Sorry, I got it.
Stakeholder,
Well,
Councillor.
I guess maybe I'm not asking it properly, and I'll. It would be nice to know who owns the beds that you're
Oh.
trying to fill, and you've stated like owners that own 4 or more doors.
Yeah.
You classified that as. It would be nice to know who is actually investing in our town, so we know. I think it's important, and as far as like not removing the city from reporting to us, I don't see how that's beneficial to us making an educated decision to help you if we don't know actually all the information.
So we'll cover that off in the agenda item as well, Councillor Dunneback. Thank you. You bet.
I can answer a few of those. So just cycling through. So there's a list of 16, I believe it's 16, sorry, I'm going off the top of my head. STR owners or managers, we call them STR, short-term rental in Kimberley, registered. So that it gets, because of the new world of VRBO, Airbnbs, yada, 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 it gets quite very confusing quite quick.
Who are the big guys, Danny?
So in Kimberley, we have some major players. Basically, we have the resort being a major player. Triple Creek Hotel has 80 some beds, and North Star Group has those are kind of our 2 big players. And then we have kind of a secondary level with some very important, well, everybody's very important, but some larger numbers who are actually more managers than owners. So they're people that manage out of town, people that own Airbnbs and whatnot. So they're companies, individuals, groups. And then we have a group as well that's, once again, not important's not the right word, but owning less beds or heads or doors, whatever way you want to call it, that are in between that 4 to 10 range. And, those can be anywhere from Alpenglow bed and breakfast to just individually owned bed and breakfast to some companies that own like Simply Kimberley, multiple houses, tons like that. So those are your main stakeholders. Now, those aren't, when we talk about hotel tax being collected, like it's not, so basically what it is an additional tax that doesn't at all land, it's about, well, as of last year, 2025 was 280,000 collected, ballpark. And before that was 250, and 5 years ago was 150, so it's kind of gone up. That is basically a tax that's kind of put onto anybody that's coming to the area staying in a short-term accommodation. It doesn't come at all from any locals. It doesn't come from the hotel owners. they don't get to say, I'm going to charge this or not. Like it's just a like a alcohol tax or anything like that that's put on. So it's just they collect it, they report on it, it goes back to the ministry, and then it gets kicked back. As far as the change from the funds going directly to Tourism Kimberley instead of via City of Kimberley, that is more from just it's like putting in there's value in either way. But it kind of creates just an extra set of work. So when we say if the funds go direct to Tourism Kimberley, it does in no way takes out us reporting to the City of Kimberley. The city and your accommodators are always the two, well, however many accommodators there, main stakeholders of MRDT tax. So they need to know everything every year. They need to get the report. We still need the city's signature every year. City needs to review our plan, our tactical plan, and our end of year reporting. What it stops is, so every month, basically the MRDT money comes in every month. It's 3 months back. So we just collected January's, or received January's would be the right word. So that the moment that goes into the city has to account for it, let our accountant know, comes through there. Once again, it's not a big deal. It's just an extra set of steps, which is obviously an extra set of labor costs on both sides.
So I think Jim is going to talk a little bit about that when we get to the item as well.
Yeah. So but in no way is it not reporting to the city. So still our 1 year tactical, well, five-year plan has to go through the city. Our 1 year tactical plan saying, hey, we're staying with the 5-year plan or slightly changing to the city for approval every year before submission to DBC and ministry. And then our reporting at the end has to be signed off by the city still every year that we did actually do what we were going to said we're going to do. So none of that changes.
Sure, go ahead, Councillor Dunneback.
So would you say that the majority of your advertising is basically directed for RCR then?
No, actually, I would say they have a problem with RCR is not happy with the last 5 years because in their opinion, we haven't done enough for them as well. So I can't speak a ton to what has been done in the last 5 years because obviously I wasn't here. I'm looking over docs and reading reports, talking to the board. But what I can speak to is, the last few months and what I've understand. A lot of it has been focused on. There's been a big focus on golf. If you look through the strategic plan, there's been a lot of focus on promoting a good place to be slogan and just getting people here. It's been a very small, I would say almost ineffective isn't the right word because obviously the results have been good, but there hasn't been a big enough pot at the moment to really make a difference. So at 150 5 years ago to 250 now, you're always going to have admin costs, paying a GM, ED, manager, whatever you want to call them. That's going to eat up so much. You have to do X amount of accounting that's going to cost about 30 to 40 grand every year. It's part of the deal that goes to the DVC ministry. So when you're only collecting 150 to 250, you're probably eating up 100 to 150 of that before you even get into the actual work you want to be doing. When you compare it to as the notes that were sent to like the city, we're talking a lot of DMOs like that we have goals to be working towards, like the Tourism Fernies, the Tourism Goldens. They're up in that $500 to $1 million range. So that's where we want to get. The 3% part of that helps us get there. Us doing a better job as well helps us get there as well.
What is the incremental 3%? How much does that represent?
3%.
Or sorry, the extra 1%.
That's, it's about going to be where we sit now if things keep moving the same way at about a just under 100 grand difference, but 0.2% of that has to go direct to DBC for event fund. So it's only about a 0.8 you get. And then as well, when you get the 1%, if additional 1%, if you are approved, you have to start working in how you're going to slowly start integrating some affordable housing initiatives. So like with our strategic plan, we're kind of bookmarking that at the end because we're still, as a DMO, quite small. So moving that towards, so it's not like this gold ticket that's going to change.
So it's about 80 grand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hang on a second. Councillor Cairns, go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks for your presentation. And I see the strategic overview pointing to collaboration and, collaboration is about understanding organizations working together, working up solutions together. And and sharing resources. And I'm wondering about, there's many different organizations that are offering tourism visitor experience services within the community. And I'd like to hear your comments about sharing resources with other organizations.
Yeah, I think it's the only way to success, to be honest. Like, impactful success is to collaborate. So it's to collaborate, be collaborative. Now, obviously, collaboration means like thoughtful collaboration. If we're talking a $250,000 to $350,000 a year, we still have to be very careful with how we spend. But yeah, working with the chain, like just taking successes we see in other areas and not replicating them, but making them our own versions. So that's working with the resort, working with the chamber, working with the local trail society, working with the regional DMO, who's Kootenay Rockies Tourism, who just happens to have their main office right here in Kimberley as well. It's aligning with everybody's plan as best as we can without kind of stepping on toes, and then trying to use our funds how we can use them, which are very specific towards basically offering marketing services, offering visitor services. Collecting data is huge, which I think that is kind of one of the key areas I would like to see if I'm successful and am able to stay on after the RFP process. And we're at 3%. I think that's a key going forward, collecting data so we can, as an area together, through the chamber, through the city, through the resort, through the DMO, make data informed decisions of how we spend future money, not kind of moving away from making kind of guess decisions, but really data proven decisions. And a DMO can use MRDT funds to really spearhead that and become kind of the glue piece that helps connect everything and drive a lot of that. So that's one of the things I really like, and I always like to kind of drive that through education and training. But in the end, the plan really comes down to what the accommodators want, what the stakeholders want, the city wants, and then the executive director, whoever that may be, myself at the moment. Their kind of role, and the board of directors, of course, their kind of role is to execute the plan for the area and spend the money as best as possible for the area.
So a lot of the questions are going to kind of move into the strategic plan and kind of how that's allocated in collaboration. The purpose of our meeting tonight is about the MRDT renewal, and I would suggest that in the not too distant future, we put together a committee of the whole to have all three parties sit down and have a broad conversation about all of this. But at the end of the day, that renewal is kind of what's hanging. It's what's the agenda item tonight, and we need to specifically deal with that before we move out into the broader reaches. So with that, I want to thank you for the presentation, Danny. And we'll move right away into the discussion on the MRDT, which is kind of where most of these questions are residing in any event. Council okay with that?
I did have one more question.
Well, go ahead, Councillor down the back. Take one more and then we'll move on.
I apologize for being so wordy tonight. You mentioned something that sort of sparked. Just wondering how you plan to, how affordable housing in the MRDT and heads and beds, how does that smash together?
It smashes together because DBC wants it to now, and they're in charge of the program. So yeah, that's kind of I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
So if I may, Danny, the genesis of that was in Whistler and Tofino and some of the larger DMOs that have, well, in Whistler's case, they have about $7 million to work with on MRDT. Tofino similarly is in the multi-millions, and they want to address some of those issues in their communities. But as we all know, not all resort municipalities are equal. And the amount of money, Whistler's at the top at 7 million, and we second from the bottom at 270,000 or whatever it is. So the practicality of some of those things that the other municipalities are doing doesn't exactly lay well with us and the amount of money that we have to work with. So it just means we're going to have to be a little more focused on kind of where that money is spent. And, you know, judging from the commentary and a lot of the commentary going on over the last week or so, I think getting everybody together in the committee of the whole for a couple of hours to hammer all this out would be very fruitful.
And I'll just add, the beauty of this is if it's renewed and if there's a decision and people are on board with the extra 3%, Kimberly will not stay at 280. Like the numbers are moving up, cause and effect because the DMO or correlation, whatever you want to call it, but more people are coming to Kimberly. There's probably going to be more accommodators in the area, and the 3% will add, and we have the opportunity to continue collecting the money without it costing the locals anything, and then really put together a strong plan on how to implement it slowly, strategically, consistently, and collaboratively going forward to help benefit the community as best possible. But if the MRDT is not renewed, then for the next 5 years, there will be zero to worry about.
0 people?
Zero money.
Zero money.
Zero money.
Okay.
Zero
We're-
hotels.
we're gonna
So-
talk
and what
about
will
that in
most
the
likely
next segment.
happen is
Thank
the
you.
accommodators will create their own thing.
Thanks for the presentation, Danny. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Okay, we will move on to new business number 8, which is the MRDT overview and renewal. And before we kind of get into questions and comments, I'll ask Jim to kind of give us the overview and what it is we're dealing with tonight. Go ahead, Jim.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Mayor. To start, just a thanks to Tours and Kimberly, Danny, and the board of directors. I know you guys have done a ton of work on this thing already. The support you have from the accommodators really does need to be commended. I mean, that's a big deal, and to have their support behind this thing is it's definitely a win. So this staff report is deliberately long. The intention was to provide just a bunch of the mechanics and about how the MRDT program works, to augment the information provided in the presentation here. For obvious logistical reasons, all of this couldn't be fit into that presentation. So I'm not going to go through this in detail, but if council has any questions about it, please stop me, or at the end I can try to fill in some blanks. So the just a bit about the program itself first, and then I'll get into kind of Kimberly specific information about the MRDT. So the authority to collect the MRDT is under the Provincial Sales Tax Act, and there's actually regulations that's associated with that as well. Eligible uses of the MRDT as defined in that regulation are, in broad terms, tourism marketing programs and projects, initiatives respecting affordable housing, and any other prescribed processes set out in the regulation. In the information on the Destination BC website, it kind of disseminates that into a bunch of more specific things, but I'm not going to read all those off. The purposes that's set out in that regulation for Kimberly, City of Kimberly specifically, is marketing for the conference center. So that was put into the legislation back in 2007 when this thing first started. Yeah, again, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds here, but just with regards to the designated recipient, Danny indicated there's a request to change the designated recipient. Currently, it's the City of Kimberly. And there's a request to have that changed to the DMO, to Tourism Kimberly. So for designated recipients, the way the legislation reads, it can be either the municipality, regional district, or an eligible nonprofit business association. So DMO, for example. Just to give you an idea of who typically is designated as the designated recipient in the 14 resort municipalities in the province, the DMO is designated in 8 of those, municipality in 5, and then another eligible not-for-profit business association is 1. And just whenever there's a comparison between MRDT and the various resort municipalities, it is really important to keep in mind the level of funds that the various municipalities collect through this thing. Kimberly 2025 is $280,000. Fernie was 1.35 million. Revelstoke 1.7 million. Golden 1.6, and Little Tofino $2 million. So I mean, that obviously impacts the designated recipient or designated service provider's operating budget, and therefore the amount of resources that they can dedicate to tourism marketing and programs. So just one more piece on the designated recipient. So it can be, again, a municipality, regional district, or another association. The regional district or municipality can either administer the MRDT themselves, like expend the funds, put together the reporting, or they can delegate that to a service provider. So that's what Kimberley has done since 2007. The administration of the MRDT funds has been delegated to Tourism Kimberley. So as Danny noted, there's an option for the MRDT hotel tax collection to either be 2% or 3%. Kimberley and Valemount actually are the only resort municipalities left at 2%. Everybody else has been at 3% for a while now. That just came in in 2015, so it's been available for a while. Yeah, so with the Tourism Kimberley being the delegated service provider, there are some rules around the type of nonprofit organization that can administer the funds. And Tourism Kimberley they're well suited. I mean, their bylaws designate their 7 voting directors as the city of Kimberley. So the city has 1 voting member on their board. It can either be a staff member or an elected official. And the rest are representative from Kimberley Alpine Resort, a rep from the Golf Stakeholders Consortium, a minimum of 2 representing accommodators, and then a minimum of 2 representing non-accommodators. So those are really the players in tourism in Kimberley, and I think they're well suited to be, having some input into this process. Some of this stuff is going to be a repeat of what Danny just went through, but Kimberley's MRDT, the regulation, the legislation that allows for the collection of that is going to be repealed on April 1st, 2017. So if that doesn't happen, or if the application is late, we not only lose the MRDT money, but in order to be a resort municipality, one of the conditions is that you need to be collecting MRDT as well. So we would lose MRDT, lose our resort municipality designation, and lose the associated funding under the RMI program. So it's very important, obviously, that this kind of gets to the point where it's renewed. Yeah, on the jump from the 2% to 3%, again, the estimate I think is anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 in additional revenue that's going to give. The option to change the designated recipient. There's actually reached out to Destination BC, to their senior program advisor for the MRDT program, just to gain a better understanding of what that meant. And I asked for kind of advantages and disadvantages from both the municipality's perspective and the DMO's perspective. Like from city staff's perspective, the way it works now is the money comes in to the city's bank account. Krista, our CFO, administers those funds and essentially writes a check back to the DMO for their administration as a service provider. There's also one of the things that I've struggled with, given the way it's currently working, is that as a service provider, Tourism Kimberley, their executive director and board of directors, they put together all the reporting. The city staff we're not involved or engaged in the actual day-to-day operation and administration of those funds. We don't write the checks, and so all of that information is put together by TK. Because the city is a designated recipient currently, those reports, after they're done by TK, end up on my desk, and I'm asked to sign them. And I have a really hard time with that, not having not been involved. So I've asked for assurances from the accountant that looks after their books and stuff that everything in their opinion is good to go, just to give myself some assurance. But it is a bit of a struggle having to sign off on something that I haven't been involved in. So just with regards to the designated recipient, so what the senior program advisor has said here is that for the municipality, the advantages and disadvantages. So as an advantage, reduced administrative and compliance responsibilities, as TK would be responsible for all MRDT planning, financial oversight, annual reporting, and compliance with the provincial requirements. The municipality would continue to approve the MRDT application and renew every 5 years via letter support, but would not be responsible for day-to-day MRDT administration or annual reporting. In reality, that's the way it works currently. We're not responsible for any of that stuff. It's delegated to the DMO. Another advantage is that the funds flow directly to TK, which eliminates the need for any transfers from the municipality. Potential disadvantage is that TK would make the final decision on MRDT spending and would not need approval from the municipality. And for the DMO for Tourism Kimberley becoming a designated recipient, advantage would be they wouldn't be required to receive approval of MRDT expenditures from the municipality. Monthly MRDT disbursements are sent directly to TK. Potential disadvantages, they would be responsible for all reporting compliance, which could be seen as an administrative burden. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of the MRDT program and how it works in Kimberley. What the resolutions, the direction that staff is looking for from council tonight, there's 4 separate resolutions here, and I'm just going to go through them, and if there's any explanation, I'll try to provide it, and then pass it along to Mr. Mayor to ask the question. But the first one is that council directs staff to prepare for consideration the first 3 readings of at the May 11th council meeting, the new MRDT bylaw to authorize and request the province of BC to impose tax for a renewed 5-year period commencing April 1st, 2027. So I don't think, there really should be any discussion or debate on that one. I think that's something we all know is a benefit for all involved here. The second one is that the new MRDT bylaw to authorize and request the province to impose a tax for a renewed 5-year period, stipulate that the tax rate increase from 2% to 3%. Again, in my mind, that's a bit of a no-brainer. I think the challenge with that in the past has been gaining the support of the accommodators. TK has that. And if the accommodators are comfortable adding another % onto their bills, then I think that's a pretty good indication that I'll just go through these couple more. Thanks. The next one is that council approved the designated recipient of the MRDT funds. And I left that blank just in case there's some additional discussion to be had here. The options are the municipality or Tourism Kimberley. And then the next one is that council directs staff to send a letter to the Regional District of East Kootenay requesting their support for renewal of the MRDT. That's another requirement of the program under the heading kind of local government support. Another thing that I'll just speak to briefly here. My understanding is that all of council, most of council was contacted and informed of the ability for other organizations through an MOU or service agreement to fill gaps identified in the, if there's gaps identified in the services that TK can provide. Council can, or through this process, through an MOU, some of the MRDT funding can be designated to another organization. So that's all I got. That would be something the designated recipient would make that determination. So if it remains the city through this process, that's something that could be designated within the strategic plan, which kind of guides the expenditure of the funds going forward. Again, I mean, $280,000 might sound like a lot, but it doesn't go very far when you get it. But that is an option.
Go ahead, Councillor Fox. You ready for?
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to confirm something because I'm kind of confused because thank you, Denny, for your presentation. Appreciate it. in Danny's presentation, he said they have 91% approval of short-term accommodators, but I thought it was all accommodators.
No,
Yeah, the term short-term, there are two. Short-term is everybody. It's hotels, big hotels, small hotels. People stay there on a short-term basis. So the reference he was making was to everybody.
I guess I find that, because when I think short-term rentals, I think sort of really specifically of the Airbnbs, and that's kind of how it read, and no offense, that's kind of how it read in this stuff. So it's just, yeah, and without seeing sort of the documentation that goes with it, it's hard to, yeah, corroborate that.
yeah, and I've attached the MRDT requirements guide. I think you can probably find it in there. That is a product of the PST Act, Provincial Sales Tax Act. So that's where that comes from. I guess the definition is, you know, between short-term accommodation and long-term accommodation, where people are renting for a month or two. So it's collected from not only so the hotels, and that used to be, you know, the short-term rentals were the hotels when it was called the hotel tax. It's since been expanded to include the online accommodators. So if there's an operator that's got four or more short-term rentals, that is now collected as well. So when the MRDT funds are provided, there's kind of, they're split up between traditional short-term accommodation and the OIP online stuff.
So which one,
There-
yeah, which one is this referring to? The OAP, the hotels, or both?
Both.
Okay, because that doesn't read as that, but yeah, okay. Sorry.
Councilor McGuire.
Yeah, so it's a lot to wrap my head around, if I'm being honest. I spent most of the day trying to read through all this and come to something that makes sense for me. And yeah, there's a few gaps that I see in this, and one of them is that I've never seen financials from TK, so it's really hard to like know what you're up to and where the money's being spent, because I mean, maybe it's going across Jim's desk, but I don't see that information. And I also don't see a budget that kind of breaks out what this additional 1% is being spent on. That said, I'm assuming that that'll be part of the final 5-year plan to the province. And I hope that I get to see that. But yeah, just having a clear understanding of what that 1% is being spent on would be helpful. That said, I support the 1%. I think it's a great benefit to our community to have a little bit of extra funding, because that extra funding, like it's been mentioned, you know, it'll create a great benefit with the small amount that we're currently receiving. I do, as far as there, you know, I noticed there was some reference to tourist information, and I know that you've recently pulled out of the visitor center, and that there's still, it seems like it's still up in the air around that. So part of me wants to have that included in the 5-year plan, even if it's not actually and doesn't end up coming out of the MRDT funds. Having it in there allows us to possibly allocate if needed, because I feel like the dust hasn't settled on that. That's kind of what I'm getting at. And I don't know how much of an ability we as councillors have to impact that 5-year plan. That's not even clear to me, to be honest. As far as the designated recipient goes, I think that at this point, just because of the recent changes at TK, the recent changes at the chamber, the recent environment, I just feel like it might be more beneficial for this turn just to keep it as the City of Kimberley for now. I know that it is a little bit of a more of an administrative burden, but I think it just helps to have that oversight in this time of transition. I know you're here for 2 years, but we don't know what happens after that. There's still unknowns, is my point. So that's where I stand on it, is increase to 3%, keep the city as a delegate at this point. And yeah, I'm really excited about the collaborative spirit, you know, the master strategy plan and community collaboration that you listed in your presentation. That's really awesome. And I look forward to the discussion that we're possibly going to have in the committee of the whole.
Thanks for those comments, Councilor McGuire. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, so just with regard to budget and to Councillor Dennebeck's earlier question about who the accommodators are, in my staff report, I did include what's required along with the application. This 5-year strategic plan is one piece of it. In addition to that, there's the application form itself, evidence the funds are incremental to existing resources, for tourism funds, evidence consultation with the RDEK, evidence of authority to impose the tax, documentation on the MRDT program, including how revenue will be administered, evidence of consultation with tourism industry stakeholders, and accommodation directory form that lists all the accommodators and providers, accommodation sector and support form with at least 51% of accommodators representing at least 51% of the total number. Confirmation that DBC has been consulted, third-party authorization form, disclosure. But I'm not going to go through it all, but it's extremely detailed. And I think once all of that information is put together, it'll answer a lot of questions. With regard to the BIC, yeah, I know there's been a lot of kind of backroom chatter around this, and I think it was the chamber that contacted individual members of council to kind of explain the ability to chunk off a piece of the MRDT. So I did ask the program advisor about that as well, and they stated that so it has to be done through an MOU or a service agreement with the designated recipient. And what she said was that so rather than that happening at this point in time, like that doesn't need to be specified in the bylaw or anything else. She said that the upcoming 5-year plan could reference VIC services along with potential partnerships and estimated budget. So just in very loose terms. Yeah, and I think that, with the notion of having another meeting with all the players at the table, as long as it's a committee of the whole meeting where we can have some discussion and recommendations can be pushed through to council on this, I think that's probably where that should be. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not necessarily saying that's the direction that council should go. I'm just saying if we have it in the 5-year strat plan, then it gives us flexibility, and ultimately that decision can be made as the dust settles around all this. So, I mean, whether VIC stays open, whether it's funded through a different means, we just don't know at this point.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Councillor Roberts, then Councillor Cairns.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a question for Jim. Jim, with regard to the being the recipient of the check and the dispensation back to the organization, through that process, before or after or during, do you ever have any eyes on how the money's being spent now?
No, not until the reports are done.
Which would be still ongoing because of the requirement to report to the city on an annual basis. That's when you'd know even the way it is set up now.
Yeah.
Okay, so the fact that we circumvented the check coming to us and not having to send it on doesn't change anything at all, really.
Well, I mean, as the designated recipient, it's the city's responsibility to ensure that all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, we're following the legislation, the MRDT guidelines. And it's, there isn't a whole lot of oversight being provided right now. So I would suggest that if it's council's direction to the city remain as a designated recipient, that some resources be dedicated to that. When the city had an economic development officer, that person was tasked with, I don't know what the level of engagement was, but I think they worked fairly closely with the DMO on all of this stuff, and that was lost when that position went away. So
You'd rather keep it open.
we do not have the capacity to take that on with our current structure. But
So if we did have an EDO somewhere down the line, that would be reassigned, you would suspect, as long as we were the recipient.
I would suggest that.
Councillor Cairns.
Thank you. I support the first two motions, and however, as far as changing the designated recipient, it feels very rushed, especially given the kind of the lack of track record and changes has already been mentioned. And that kind of lack of transparency. We haven't seen those financials nor the deliverables under the TKP for service with the city. So, in terms of the third motion, I understand, administratively, efficiency would be greater for the city, but I don't at this point have the comfort that I would need to support that. So I would be seeking to have the city continue on as the designated recipient. Those are my
Thanks,
comments
Councillor
for now.
Cairns. Councillor Fox, go ahead, and then we'll call the vote.
So just confirm a couple things. So the due date of June 30th is only because of the increase, correct?
That's right, yeah.
So if we kept it at 2%, I'm not saying I'm going to do that, I'm just clarifying things. So if we kept it at 2%, the due date goes to September 30th, correct?
October 30th?
October
It's-
30th, September
yeah,
30th?
If we leave it at the 2%, it's 6 months in advance of the repeal date. And if we go to 3%, it's 90 days
Okay.
in advance of the repeal date.
And so we're being asked to make a decision by May 11th? Is that what the report, that's what the
Well,
ask
I
was?
mean, the direction being sought right here is that it's for me to prepare the bylaw. In order to
Mhm.
prepare the bylaw, I need to know what the percentage is and I need to know who the designated recipient is. So if these resolutions are passed, I'll go ahead, prepare the bylaw with whatever percentage you say in it.
Mhm.
And then when the bylaws are read, first, second, and for third readings first, and then third reading, that'll be the time when the actual decision's made. No decision will be made until the bylaw is adopted.
Okay. Just because like this whole process feels very, not a criticism of anyone, just feels kind of like with a quick turnaround, particularly because, and I realize there's time needed to draft bylaws and whatnot, but it's only the end of April and it's not due till the end of June. And it's very scant on detail to ask us to make a decision of this magnitude. And Woody's been on, or sorry, Councillor McGuire's been on council longer than I have, and I've never seen anything either. And I mean, the concern would be that, if something were to be bad, I'm not saying that would happen, of course, that I don't think anything is like that, but it's a city that's on the hook for it, right? And that's a part that I'm not really comfortable with. And I don't know. I feel like a lot of people want to get in on tourism and have a larger impact on it than they feel like they do. And this might be a really good opportunity for us as a city to look at how we do it. I'd like us to stay as a designated recipient.
Last comment, go ahead, Kevin.
I just want to say I concur basically with all of the counselors and Jim as well. The only thing that I would love to see changed as tourism brings a lot of impact to our community, that maybe 3% isn't actually enough. And if we're going to change things, maybe now's the time. Well, yeah, I don't know why.
Yeah, just final comment on that. The options are 2 or 3% under the PST Act.
Yeah, we would agree.
Mr. Mayor, if I could make just one short
Okay.
comment, just one
Okay, last comment.
last comment.
Nobody else put your hands up, please.
I know
We will be here till 11 o'clock tonight.
this wouldn't feel so short, Pat, if they didn't give you so much to read and so much to digest, which probably should have happened 18 years ago when they first started. But I think we need to consider the historical method in which they have been operating, which has been honorable, and the fact that they have been doing what they said they were going to do with the money that they did receive. And I am not worried about that. The people that they have been using to work with are very smart people, and they have put together an absolutely amazing strategic plan, and I'm quite happy to buy into it. So
It's a great way to finish up the conversation. Thanks very much, Councillor Roberts. Okay, we have Sue, sorry, I missed your hand.
Sorry, that was from before. I hadn't lowered it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the first, pardon me, motion on the floor is the council directs staff to prepare for first 3 readings, the bylaw to impose the renewal for a 5-year period. Councillor McGuire moves and Councillor Roberts seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Next up, we have the MRT, the new bylaw to authorize movement to from 2% to 3%. Mover, please. Councillor McGuire, thank you. Councillor Fox seconds. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. The next is that council approve the City of Kimberley as the designated recipient. Mover, please. Councillor McGuire, thank you. Councillor Roberts seconds. Any opposed? That motion is carried. And finally, the council directs staff to prepare and send a letter to the RDEK requesting their support for the imposition at 3%. Councillor McGuire moves and Councillor Karen seconds. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. All right, good discussion, council. We'll kind of put on our corporate officer's agenda here to fit in a committee of the whole here sometime in the not too distant future to bring all of our parties together for a more robust conversation. Okay, next up, we have another long staff report here, Troy. Or is it Justin? Yeah. Sorry, Troy. Okay, the next item is the Development Application Procedures Bylaw update, and the motion on the floor is that council approve first reading of the new bylaw. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor McGuire moves. Councillor Fox seconds. All right, Justin, it's a lengthy staff report. Give us the brief Coles Notes version, and then we'll ask the questions.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council, for having me tonight. Yeah, so a bit of a lengthy and hopefully not too dry staff report, but given the nature of the content, probably a little bit on the dry side. But yeah, I'm here to talk about the development approval, the development application procedures bylaw and fees bylaw, which we are proposing a new bylaw to replace the existing one. The existing one was adopted in 1996, so 1994, sorry, so 32 years ago. And it last received an update in 2006, so 20 years ago. So it is quite an aged bylaw at this point, and one that is used quite frequently for development applications that we do see here at the city on a regular basis. So really the intent here is to update it, bring it into the modern era. There's been a lot of legislative changes in the interim since 2006. And so just making sure that it both meets practice and legislation as they exist now. So I'm going to run through the major areas of change or approach that we're coming at the new bylaw with. And just sort of as a blanket overview, the approach that we did take in drafting this bylaw was focused on timelines and ease of understanding the bylaw, so both for the public and the development community. We've heard extensively from the development community that time is money, and so we're really wanting to minimize that for their behalf so that they can see projects come to fruition in as affordable a manner as possible without the city being a major block for them ultimately. So to start things off, the development approval information section lays out the requirements for any application coming into the city pertaining to reports or other supporting documentation for any sort of development that is proposed. So this section really does, well, there's two things going on in this section. One is simplification. So basically stating that, yes, there is a long list of different types of applications that may be required for any given application type or any given application, individual application. That's not to say that all of these reports will be requested, and in fact, it's typically a much shorter list of them, if anything, typically 2 or 3 reports for more basic applications, and then with more complex applications, that list does grow. There is an appendix included that goes through a longer list, but still not an exhaustive list of potential reports that may be required for any development application. This is par for the course with the process for reviewing development applications, as on any given site, there may be different complications that come up, different histories that need to be addressed, or different site conditions that need to be understood. The agency referral process, this is a new section of the bylaw, and that's just really to state that there will be a timeline given for external agency referrals. So that is specific to those external agencies. So things like the RDEK, different provincial agencies where we have the authority to sort of set a time limit on those, that we will give them effectively 3 weeks to respond. And that coming up on that 3 weeks, we're then able to move forward and say, we will take that as a no response option, and be able to bring forward a report. But in instances where we've identified that there's a greater intent or a greater need to hear from an external organization, it doesn't limit us in extending that timeline. Or if we do hear from an organization that they do need more time, we can always extend that. That kind of bleeds into the next section on notice methods. So the notice methods section is updated with some of the legislation that did come out through COVID, where the government did allow for municipalities to set different standards than was previously allowed in the legislation. So specifically, the legislation now says that should a municipality pass a bylaw that limits the number of noticed methods to no less than 3, there's a much broader flexibility in what is allowed for those notice methods. In some application types, there are still specific notice requirements that we do need to meet, but in the vast majority of development applications, we would then be able to sort of pick and choose from these methods as how we want to notice the community at large, depending on the complexity, impact of a given application. The intent here, again, is not to limit the city in its approach to notification. As we'll talk about a little bit later on in the report here, the intention here, where there is no notice requirements for a bylaw such as this, we do intend on doing a public engagement process to hear from the public on what their thoughts are, if they have any concerns. And that would be the intent going forward, but for less or for more innocuous applications where there isn't concern about a lot of public outcry, or there is a lot of concern about public outcry, we can always extend that. We can always go through a much more rigorous public engagement process. On the early consideration of an application section, this is very much just the practice that we've been undertaking here at the city, and it clarifies when and how that practice can be undertaken ultimately. The intention is that by clarifying that process, whereby an application is coming forward that staff know may be contentious or may not be approvable from council, that there's a opportunity for that application to come forward prior to a developer or an applicant spending money on the reports that may be needed to see that development realized or to make it its way through some of the processes involved, be it zoning, official community plan amendments, or development permitting. And so by allowing the applicant to have their proposal seen by council, it may preclude them actually undertaking some of those studies and ultimately just saving money and time for everyone involved. If the applicant is granted the sort of go ahead to continue the process, it's not a rubber stamp approval where they don't have to come back and have their day in front of council again. In the example of, say, a zoning amendment, it would be saying, okay, go ahead, go get your studies done. And then once we have all of that information, we can make our final decision. And yeah, that would be the same for any application type that may be brought forward through that early consideration process. Security of work section. This is a very dry section, but it's an important one for making sure that if there are works that are being stated to be completed by a developer, quite often we see things like landscaping as a major process that we want security of works for. It's effectively a deposit that the developer makes with the city to make sure that those works happen. Often we'll also see securities for things like utilities or other functional pieces like that. And yeah, it's just to make sure that that work ultimately does happen. And this just spells out that process for how and when we can take those securities and how and when we refund those securities based on either works completed or we ultimately spend those securities on making sure that the works are completed. There's a couple of different sections where we talk about delegation of approval authority, and I'll kind of go through those one by one here. So the first up is for development permits. All development permits are outlined in the OCP, and primarily the rationale behind the delegation of these to staff is that they are primarily technical processes. So the scope and approval for all development permits is outlined within the official community plan. The official community plan sets policies that then well, as it happens now, are reported to council to say, well, in a staff report, where staff have worked with applicants over the length of the development application process to make sure that all of those requirements are being met. Typically what happens is once they've worked through those issues with staff, then what we like to do is bring forward a report that is in support of the development moving forward and stating that it does meet all of the objectives of the official community plan. There's 5 different types of well, sorry, 6 now, and I'll speak to the last one in a moment, but 5 different types of official community plan development permits that would be delegated to staff in this bylaw, and those are for multi-unit residential developments, commercial and mixed-use developments, industrial developments, environmental hazard considerations, and environmental protection considerations. Yeah, and like I say, the vast majority of these are for those very technical reports that show that a development is meeting requirements related to things like geotechnical analysis, related to access. For subdivisions, we see things like what their utility plans are. And so we end up working a lot with the operations team on and building officials and within the planning department itself on yeah, just making sure that they are meeting all of those technical requirements and that the developments ultimately are meeting the policies of the official community plan. And I just want to take a moment here to stress that official community plan policy importance, because that really is where the municipality as a whole and council is able to give that direction to what types of developments we want to see, what the requirements for those developments are, and ultimately both council or delegated staff would be beholden to making sure that those requirements are met or not ignored, I guess. Yeah. And then, oh, sorry, finally, I just wanted to note on this, and then also with minor development variance permits that I'll speak to in a moment, there is a requirement, and it's included within the bylaw here, that should staff refuse any individual development permit, the applicant may request to have it reconsidered by council. So I did a quick analysis on this while I was preparing the bylaw report. And my apologies, I'm not going to find the numbers. Oh, sorry. 34 development permit applications have been seen by council since 2020. Of those, only 2 of them were recommended against approval, either for deferral or refusal by council, and every single one of them has been approved by council. So I just wanted to give that as some context that generally speaking, there haven't been any where staff would have approved or refused an application where council wouldn't have been able to see it in the opposite direction out of the past 5 years here. The next piece is minor development variance permits. And so development variance permits are for any type of application that otherwise does not meet zoning requirements. And these allow for relaxation of things like setback, of parking, of height. There's a whole mess of different things that can be brought forward through development variance permits. And to look at some of the more routine ones to help save on timelines regarding some of the more routine ones that council does see. There's a few different areas that have been proposed to be delegated to staff to just simplify that process. So specifically for development variance permits that are for no more than 10% of site coverage or maximum site coverage, for no more than 20% of maximum height, for no more than 50% of setbacks where they're abutting another property, and for up to 100% where they're abutting a highway or lane. For up to 20% of parking space size, and then otherwise where they must meet the requirements of the zoning bylaw. Moving along, the liquor control and cannabis branch applications. We don't see these super frequently, but they do come in from time to time. And the LCCRB does have processes in place where they undertake the community engagement for any new applications. So in instances where the city does want to take that on, we end up taking on the entirety of the public engagement for such applications. So the intention here is, again, to help save time, as any time that we do need to bring forward a report to council on these, that does add, generally speaking, a month to 2 months, depending on the application timing and complexity. But what the proposal here is that application types for liquor or cannabis licenses that are up to 2 a.m. Or for 11 p.m. for events of 2,500 people or more, or temporary liquor license extensions up to 3 a.m. during city sanctioned events would be able to just be processed by staff to sort of help save some of that administrative burden. Then the neighborhood plan process. So this is the one development permit process that we're recommending stay with council for the time being, at least, as it is a new process. And this is for any development on lands that are of 1 hectare in size or larger. This is a new development permit process that was brought in with the recent OCP and zoning changes that were approved or adopted last year. And yeah, it's just because of the scope and scale of these types of applications. I think it's still important that council has that review, and as this is a new process, wanted to make sure that the policies that we do have in place within the OCP make sense and are agreeable going forward with council. The fees, we are looking at bringing the fees from the existing fees bylaw and incorporating it into the development applications bylaw. But the big part of the rationale there is just a centralized bylaw where anyone looking to do development can look to a single source for all the information. There, as you'll probably notice, there are quite a lot of increases in the fees. Most of the fees have not been updated for quite some time. And so trying to catch up to what the actual costs, as it is the fees for development applications are meant to be cost recovery. So trying to align those best with what the actual costs for staff time and processing applications are. And we have tried to keep it within the middle of the pack of similarly sized and oriented communities. Oh yeah. Yeah, and then just we do have some processing procedures in the schedules that just go over how each of the different application types will be processed. Again, this is for clarity, and the intention would be also to build out more of an application guide or enhance the application guides that we already have moving forward. So moving on to next steps, should council give first reading on the bylaw tonight, we will be looking to do a public engagement process, primarily focused on the development community, as that's really who this is most likely to impact. We will have a questionnaire open, or a plan is to have a questionnaire open to the general public, so that if there are any concerns, with any aspect of it, that there is an avenue for anyone in the community to comment on those. But as I say, really reaching out to the development community to have more one-on-one type conversations with different builders in town, different developers, to understand where their stance is at and how they're perceiving it. Just from past engagement events around these types of topics, that seems to be what our community likes the most, our development community specifically. So,
All right, thanks,
Thank you.
Justin. That was the Cold Notes version.
yes.
Thank you. Awesome. It's important. It just drives me crazy when I see a lot of these bylaws have, 1990, 1995 and so on, like pre-2000s, never mind, where we are in the 2020s. So it's good to see this getting updated. Council, Councillor Fox, then Councillor Roberts.
Just a couple questions. So like something like development cost charges, amenity cost charges, that kind of thing, this would not be the place to put it in, or that's that's a totally different legislative thing?
Yes, yes. Yeah, so this is just the procedures that it would be, that any development application would be processed through. But any of the cost charge, so DCC is a separate bylaw that has separate intent and needs, separate background reporting and research to sort of test out and show how and where and why those fees would be collected.
That's a short answer. I appreciate that. Just one further.
Go ahead.
The fees that you've put in here, and I realize they weren't updated since like the 80s or 90s or whatever, is there, unicorn question, is there a way to put something in place that's not, when, 20 years from now, some future group of people going, holy smokes, like 2026, so long ago. Like, is there a way to do that? Or is it just sort of, it is what it is and we hope for the best?
The development fees have been reviewed more recently than that, but it's probably within the 5 to 10 year range, I think it is. But and it is something we do try to keep an eye on. And there has been times when specific fees have been looked at on top, and rather than a whole overview. So,
Okay.
it's possible, I guess, to kind of mandate that there's annual or every number of years or something. But it's the kind of thing that we're keeping an eye on all the time anyway. So I would say it's kind of
Can I
unnecessary.
just- One further question.
Right.
From your perspective, is there a value in having it mandated to review at a certain segment of time? Like, would that make your job easier? Harder?
Not particularly. Like I said, it's the kind of thing we're always watching for. And, I think if there's a view that we're charging too much or not enough, then, it's not hard to bring that review forward.
Okay. Cool.
Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last week, a number of us spent the day in conversation regarding about the concept of shift happens. And basically what it was, taking a look at the focus of how we do business. Doesn't matter whether we're doing the development business or whether we're doing businesses in another area. The fact of the matter is all of our time has become more and more expensive to be delayed. We don't need to be delayed any longer because no matter what we're up to, we're losing money when we're delayed. And I am very pleased to see that there's some intention in here to find more effective and efficient ways for us to do our business so that people can get to what they're planning to do sooner rather than later. And I am also very pleased to see that there's going to be an opportunity for the people who will be affected by this to have some input. And I think we need to listen very carefully. We obviously we have to work properly, carefully, effectively, but we also have to make sure that that process works with the people we're working with. Not everybody who is, say, a developer or a contractor is the person that should be filling out development people. That's probably something else, and maybe they need a little hand. Maybe we need a concierge model where we give them to somebody at the front desk that helps them fill out all the fine tuning things. And I noticed that in there, people to help them with the fine tuning and stuff. Let's speed this up. Let's keep everybody happier than they have typically been in the last 3 or 4 years. And that's not just in this area. This is in just about every area that we work in these days. All of this stuff has changed the way we do business. We've got to change our rules to meet that. all of the restrictions that that have been holding us back. Let's get to the bottom of that and get rid of the crap and just do the stuff that works. Sorry.
Thanks, Councillor Roberts. Nice rant. Awesome. You're absolutely correct. And that's the purpose of, the reviews that we're doing, not just this one, but I don't know, how many bylaws do we have, Maurice?
3,000?
How many?
3,000?
3,000 bylaws. Yeah, so, we're kind of find them and fix them as we're kind of going along here. It would be nice to be able to identify those that, kind of get the most work and, prioritize those first, which I think is what you've been doing because we've had quite a number of these updates coming. I've got a couple of comments. I'll phrase them in comments as opposed to questions for consideration because the following this approval of one, the stakeholder engagement, I think is the most important part of this whole process anyway. The people that are being impacted most are the ones that should be, supplying the comments. Having said that, first is around money. Time is money, but I think it's important for us to understand that as that money grows on a development, it just gets passed on to the buyer, whether it's in rents, for the multi-unit residential or whether it's in purchase prices. It was disturbing to see that $235 million green home in Cranbrook, 35% of that cost is in fees and reports and everything but construction. That's a lot of money. So I think we just need to be cognizant about when we add cost, who actually pays the price for that. Notification methods. We haven't seemed to have too many issues here in the city of Kimberley. I certainly know the regional district has a big issue with notifications. People say, I didn't see it, I didn't get it. And we are really restricted by, the legislated means by which to do things. These three methods that we have here probably are going to miss more than 50% of the community because nobody resides in any of those places. The multi-channel universe we're in right now is a lot bigger than three. I don't know if there's anything that can be added to that, but if there is, overextending on that is probably better than under. Early consideration, that's great. But I think it's important that if early consideration comes to council, there's enough information that council can actually make an assessment. Even the way it is currently with the development permits coming to council, we want to get into the weeds. We want to know about construction detail, things that are down the road from a permitting point of view. And it's always a balancing act in trying to figure out what information does council actually need to be able to make, an informed decision. So for this early consideration, it would be a good idea to think about that. Delegated authority is great. These development variance permits, for example, when they come to council, they're just delegating those off is a really good idea. The development permit side of things, though, I think it's important that in consideration what is delegated, that you don't distance council from what's going on in the background so that we don't end up being surprised. We talked about that with Tourism Kimberley tonight. We don't know what's been going on in the background. So how do we know that they're looking after things? It's the same thing with the development permits and what's going on behind that. I think it's important to ensure that we as a council are informed, but not necessarily, part of a decision process that we don't necessarily need to be part of. And I have one question, and that's around security. What has our experience been with security on developments in general? Are we stiffed? Do we end up picking up a bill or, kind of what's our experience been?
It's a bit mixed for sure. We've had some challenges on some projects and others have gone smooth. I would say we've been inconsistent with kind of the standards and expectations, partly because of our bylaw being lacking and sort of the lack of clear direction on that in the bylaws. So that's a key part of this change is to be able to clarify expectations so that it's important staff's clear on what how to implement and what to require. And then it's clear to the development community on how that works.
All right, excellent. Thanks. Thanks for that, Troy. Go ahead, Councillor McGuire.
Yeah, I'll be brief. Most of this has already been covered. But yeah, this really cuts red tape and I like that. Saving staff time, our time, and the developers' time. So I don't see any major issues. The only one that I would mention is I'd like to still be in the loop on what's happening. So we're talking 6 development permits a year, just having some mechanism that we're notified in a timely manner.
Go ahead, Troy.
One thing I was thinking of just as those comments were being made, and as is evident elsewhere in the agenda here tonight with the quarterly administration updates. That's one of the things we sort of refresh council on what we've been through with regards to development permits. So that's an easy way. Just every quarter, we could even change that to every month if that's more regular notice is desired.
Further.
Yeah, I'd probably want a little bit more real time than quarterly, but that's just my opinion.
Thanks, Councillor McGuire. Further? Okay, we'll call the question on approval of first reading. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. Next up, we have a number of bylaws, financial bylaws for consideration. The first, pardon? See you guys. Did we bore you? Was there a problem? Okay. So the first is the 5-year financial plan bylaw for consideration of adoption. Motion on the floor is adoption. Mover, please. Councillor McGuire, thank you. Councillor Roberts seconds. Krista. What would you like to cover?
I can just give a brief summary on each of these.
Yeah, go ahead.
bylaws.
In fact, do it on each of these and then we'll go through the rest of the.
Okay,
bylaws.
okay, yeah, I can do
Yeah.
that. You bet. The first bylaw being brought forward for adoption tonight is the 2026 to 2030 5-year financial plan, which formalizes council's directions throughout the budget process, which began in November 2025. It was brought for first 3 readings at the April 13th meeting. Since that meeting, the public was invited to provide input prior to the bylaw's adoption. No comments have been received during that time. Therefore, we are recommending adoption of the bylaw this evening.
All right, excellent. No comments from the public. They've been busy with time zone change comments, undoubtedly. Council, further questions? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Next up is the City of Kimberley tax rates bylaw for 2026. Motion on the floor is adoption. Mover, please. Councillor Roberts moves. Councillor Karen seconds. Further comment? We're good?
This bylaw just lays out the tax rates for the municipal tax collection, as well as Regional District of East Kootenay and the Kootenay East Regional Hospital District. And the municipal tax rate includes the 3.23% increase to fund operating budget changes, which was presented within the 5-year financial plan bylaw. The regional district rates and hospital district rates fund their respective requisitions, which was 1.3 million for the RDEK and 1.23 million for the hospital district.
All right, council. Just for public edification, the 3.23% is the municipal variable tax rate increase. There is the flat tax that goes on top of that for the municipal portion. So an average single family home, average valued single family home in Kimberley in 2025, which was $572,175. The total municipal taxes are $3,212. All right, call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Next up is the parcel tax imposition bylaw. Consideration of adoption. A mover, please. Councillor McGuire, thank you. Councillor Roberts seconds. Any further discussion? Just check and see if there were any comments on that one. Oh, good. Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. And next up, we have the Kimberley Flat Tax Bylaw. Motion to adopt. Councillor McGuire moves and Councillor Karen seconds. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Okay, on to new business. First up is the Columbia Basin Wildfire Resilience Initiative Grant. And the the motion on the floor is that council direct staff to prepare an amendment to the one-year financial plan, year one of the financial plan for consideration at a future meeting to include an operating expenditure of $112,000 to offset the grant of $112,000. Mover, please. Councillor McGuire moves, and as I see your hand, Councillor Dunneback. Yeah. Councillor Dunneback seconds. Chief, what do we got here?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Purpose report to advise Council of grant funding awarded through CBT in relation to 2025 application submission, which will allow for completion of a wildfire risk reduction project. As found in the report, the project is in between, I guess, Forest Crown Gate and Blackbear Corner, south of Kimberley. Sorry, excuse me. In the application, we applied for planning and prescriptions as well as a prescribed burn, but unfortunately only the prescribed burn was approved through CBT. Yeah, any questions?
Questions, Council? None. Go ahead, Councillor Dunneback.
Will this include some of the piles that are still left from our last little go around there?
Yeah, intention is clean up those piles that don't get burnt before then, to capture all that in that area. So as noted in the map.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Councillor McGuire.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the map and it's kind of down near the highway between Marysville and Kimberley. Is that right?
Just before Marysville, would be
Yeah.
Forest Crown Gate, just going into the neighborhood, and just north of that to essentially Black Bear Corner, Kimber Crescent is the other.
I'm just curious on the location. Like, it's not west of any of our neighborhoods, for example. And I'm just curious: is this more just based on all the more higher risk areas have already been treated, or what's the logic here?
Logic is that it's an exit corridor out of town, so we're just trying to build, I guess, the robustness of an exit corridor within our town. But again, it still is a risk, essentially due to ember spotting. If there was a wildfire to come from the town, and then it just builds up safety for my staff when working in that area, residents evacuating, in that logic.
Thanks, Mo.
Thanks, Councillor McGuire. Further? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Next up, we have the Resident Directed Grant Program. And the motion is the council approve the CBT Resident Directed Grant Program funding allocation in accordance with the recommendations from the committee. Go back. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Fox moves. Councillor McGuire seconds. Discussion. You want to make a comment, Pam?
Yes, sure. Very quickly. Thank you to the adjudication committee for sitting through the 55 presentations of the 66 applications that we had for the Ready Grant program last Monday evening. I really appreciated that. And then sitting through us evaluating the applications here at City Hall afterwards. The Resident Directed Grant Program is made up of funding from Columbia Basin Trust and administered by the regional district. The City of Kimberley listens to the granting organizations and then allocates the funding. So once the funding is allocated, we'll provide those calculations back
to the RDEK, and they make the final decisions on when the funding will go out. So yeah, again, thank you to the adjudication committee.
Yeah, just a comment, 66 applications. So
66 applications, and the total funding asked was $317,000, and we had $100,000 almost even to give away.
that's double the number of applications. We usually got 30 to 35 applications consistently every year for a long time. Double the number. And I noticed in going through the report, their requests are going higher as well. You know, yeah, it's scarce money now, very scarce. Thanks to the committee for all your great work on that. That's not an easy thing. It was it was not easy to sit through 35 presentations, never mind, I guess 50, was it? Yeah, and thanks to the organizations for taking the time to come out and do that. It makes a difference in terms of the money that they get.
Mr. Mayor, before we vote, we we have only one name, so we don't know if it's the mover, the seconder. Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
So I had McGuire, but I did not. Fox.
Yep, no
Thank you.
problem. Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Yeah, just thanks, Counselor. I was already reprimanded for missing that one. The BC Winter Games grant allocation for 2026. The motion on the floor is that we approve the allocation as presented in the staff report. Councillor McGuire, thank you. And Councillor Fox seconds. Comments on this one, Pam?
Again, just very quickly, this is an allocation of $8,200 that we had available. We had $11,000 in requests from 6 applications. The funding is made up of interest earned from some major sporting events that happened here in the past, and the allocations come from the Kimberley and District Community Foundation. So they did come to the March 9th meeting and presented that check to us. So it's on us to allocate that funding on behalf of that organization.
Right, awesome. Comments? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Next up is the 26-27 Transit Annual Operating Agreement and Expansion Update. Motion on the floor is that Council receive the report. And secondly, further, that Council authorize the CAO and the Manager of Planning to execute the agreement with BC Transit. Councillor Fox moves, Councillor Roberts seconds. Go ahead, Troy.
Thank you, Mayor McCormick. This is fairly routine item here again. It's the annual renewal of the annual operating agreement, and the numbers there set out in the agreement are fairly consistent with the preliminary budget numbers that we use to inform the financial plan. And so we're recommending moving forward with that. And another part of the report here is just the expansion update. I think we'd already communicated to council when talking about the fair review that the funding from the province was not going to come through for the expansion that council previously considered, again, for the KC commuter service. But the part of the good news there is we continue to work with BC Transit and the operating partner on looking at ways to modify the existing schedules of the services to and from Cranbrook to better align with the high demand early and evening trips. So hoping to have more of an update on that here in the coming weeks sometime.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Troy. Council, any questions or comments? All right, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Okay, next up, we have receipt of the procurement report for the first quarter. Mover, please. Councillor Fox, thank you. And Councillor Karen, seconds. Comments on this one?
I'll just speak briefly to this report. The purpose of this report is to summarize procurement activity during the quarter. The information detailed here has been provided by the respective department managers and relates to the period of January 1st to March 31st. There are several projects awarded during the quarter, with the largest being the Wallinger Avenue East utility replacements in the amount of just over 590,000 to Next Level Consulting and Excavation, as well as the annual road rehabilitation program in the amount of 289,000 to Terrace Construction.
All right, thank you. The brief summary. Council, any questions on the procurement report? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Next is the financial update report, again for the first quarter. Motion on the floor is the council receive it. Councilor McGuire moves and Councilor Roberts seconds. Go ahead.
Great, thank you, Mayor McCormick. Yes, this report covers fiscal activity from January 1st to March 31st. It's intended to provide council and the public with a summary overview of the city's operating revenue and expenditure in comparison to the budget. Operating revenue and expenditures are aligning with the budget expectations for the quarter. However, with it being the first quarter and construction season just beginning, there's been limited progress on the capital, non-capital projects, but we expect to see those move along in the next 2 quarters.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird report for the first quarter.
Exactly.
Yeah. Council, questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Quarterly admin report. Motion on the floor is receipt. I have a mover, please. Councillor Cairns moves. Councillor Fox seconds. Highlight a couple of items.
Yeah. This, again, another lengthy report. A few of the projects on here earlier today was the Center 64 band shell, the stage landscaping was discussed. A little bit of work left to go there, but grand opening's been scheduled for June 5th, so watch out for announcements on that. Wastewater treatment plant, the groundbreaking ceremony was held on April 8th. Biggest project in Kimberley history. Really exciting to see that actually in the works. It's been planned for a long time. And to Nick and group there, they've done a great job getting it to where it is. I won't go through the planning stats. There's some great information there as well. If Troy's still here, if there's any questions on that. One thing I do want to highlight is the major project story map. It's on the website. It's been upgraded this year, and I think it's a great tool. We've actually been contacted by a few other municipalities saying, "Hey, how'd you guys do that?" They're going to try and emulate it. Yeah, the election. You've probably seen lots of posts coming into your feed. There's going to be a lot of advertising just to get the word out there that the election is coming up. Lots of good information on the city's website as well for any potential candidates that are wanting to throw their names in the hat. There's some dates that do need to be paid attention to. So yeah, I think the best thing to do is just click into that, into the city website and get the information there. On the HR side of things, we continue to recruit for a manager of human resources, executive assistant. We're getting close on that. The planner, we're going to make a concerted effort to get out there again on that. And then the environmental ambassador, summer student, we're planning on replacing that for the summer as well. One of the things to watch out for is at the farmers market this year, that the city's going to have a table where we'll have that ambassador from time to time will be sitting there. I think the plan is to have the fire department sit there from time to time as well. So if you're out wandering through the farmers market, stop by. I think it'll be a good information good way to get information out to the community without through less formal means. People can just wander up and chat. So.
All right. So you mentioned lengthy. I think it's a lot of effort for staff to put that together. But it's not just so you can take, a minute and a half to kind of run through it. I want to assure you that as we read through this, as council reads through this, both before and conceivably after the council meeting, it provides us with a really, really good level of detail on all of the things that are going on. And if we have any questions that come out of that, we can always send you an email and, kind of get questions after the fact. So I certainly value those reports. They're much appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just a reminder that these are all on the website as well. And we've been doing this for, I don't know if it's been a couple of years now. So there's a pretty good library of those things. And it's a pretty quick read if you want to go back and see what's been happening in town for the last couple of years. So.
Yeah. Go ahead, Councillor Fox.
I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So if you go to all the beautiful colorful charts of building permits, there's one for construction values where at the end of Q1, like this year, it's like so much taller than every other year. Is that because of the wastewater treatment plant?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's what I thought. But I was like, that looks so weird. It's just, yeah, just want to make sure.
So I actually had a question as well, or a comment more than a question, Troy. The value thing I'm less concerned about, but it only showed 2 new approved dwellings for the first quarter. It would be useful to get a window into what's in the queue. What does the pipeline look like? Not what's committed, but what do the inquiries look like? What are the expectations? What is the forecast? And the reason I bring that up now is because our housing, assessment, the commitments that we have are for 100 dwellings a year. And so when we end up with only 2 at the end of the first quarter, it's kind of like a bit of a gasp. So, if we could also kind of see just a summary, we don't need to know the detail, but what's in the queue as far as new dwellings, that would be awesome.
Yeah, if I may just comment briefly on that, it is a little hard to kind of project those too far out, I guess. It's part of why we obviously it's much easier to show the 5-year history here like we do. And you can see, in those last 5 full years, even the middle year there, 2023 was a bit of an anomaly. And we're, each other year was right around that, just below 80 each year. And at this point, it's hard to say what the outlook is. We definitely, we expected a few more new dwellings in that first quarter, but and we expect that there'll be a few more coming up. But at this point, we are projecting a slower year and not definitely, at least at this point, probably not going to hit that 100 units target that we'd like to. But who knows? Maybe we'll see some more proposals coming in.
Yeah, it's a quarterly update.
Yeah.
Things, it's dynamic.
Yeah.
And it's not a commitment in any way. It's just kind of what does the view look like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we always like surprises too. So.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, further? Go ahead.
So we have a fairly big development that's been sitting idle, like Kimberly Crossing. What state is that now for being brought to fruition, I guess, would be my question.
Yeah, don't have a lot of detail to share, but it is going through, it's kind of back through the receivership process, looking for a new, owner or project manager to take that over. We don't, there's, as far as we're aware, there's no firm timeline on when they're looking to kind of nail that down in terms of who's taking that project over. But, I was just actually by the site the other day to have a look around. Looks like it's, been secured and keeping secured. And, there's a fair bit of work that has been done to date. Hopefully it's not too complicated for someone to step in and get that across the finish line there. So, but yeah, as we have more information available on that, we'll be sure to update council.
Yeah, I got a couple things that I can add to that. So CMHC is driving the bus on this one. They originally were hiring a developer contractor to finish it and then sell it, and they changed their mind. They now want to sell it as is. So as you drive by there, you may see the for sale sign that's out there. That's CMHC that through the receiver that has, listed that property. I think if I remember correctly, the listing is just under $8 million, which is less than half of the money that the developer has actually got into it for 75% completion. So I think it's pretty safe to say, as Troy I think alluded to, we're going to see some activity on that soon. But it will be purchased from CMHC. Yeah.
I guess I have one other question about development. Where is the development sitting for the Fernie Street development? I know that roads are ripped up. Lots of earth has been moved and I've walked past, I guess, I want to say for the last year and a half, and I haven't, they've disrupted trails and all that stuff. And I haven't seen any development other than our community pavement being ripped up and impact to the community in kind of a negative way right now. Just would love to hear for that.
Go ahead, Troy.
Yeah, so they obviously weren't doing any further construction there over the winter season, but all indications are they're looking to get back on site here soon and get finished up. And and I know that they're definitely looking towards final approval to be able to complete some of those lot sales and work towards home construction there. So beyond that, can't provide too much more detail, but yeah, it's in everyone's interest to see that all tidied up and finished up and some houses under construction.
Thanks, Troy. Pardon me. Okay, let's call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Okay, the gallery disappeared, so I doubt that there's any questions this evening. Thank you to Councillors Cairns, Fox, McGuire, and Roberts for your updates on AKBLG. Much appreciated. Is there anything else anybody wants to highlight before we move to in camera? No? Okay, mover to go in camera, please. Councillor Fox, thank you. Councillor McGuire seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. We don't have to clear anybody out tonight, or do we? We have to kick the chief out.